Good morning, students. Senthikumar from Business Administration Department going to discuss about controlling process in management. Not only in management, in any concepts or in any thing, whatever you want to control, there should be a relevant sequence of activities. That's why it is called as process. Because what we mean as process? Process means sequence of activities. There are various stages in controlling process which is sequentially arranged. That's why it's called as process. Okay, let me come to what is controlling and what are to be controlled in management. Because we have to very clear about the things, what are all the factors have to be controlled. For example, suppose if you are going to consider a production company, then what are the factors to be controlled? Whether the quality of the product or the output of the product per day, or suppose if we come to the employees, what are the factors to be controlled? For example, employees' performance may be a factor to be controlled, or employees' absenteeism may be a factor to be controlled, or as a overall, the turnover of the company, employees' turnover may be controlled. So we have to understand first what are the factors have to be controlled. Okay, let me come to one particular factor I will consider here. I am considering a company in which some 100 employees are working, and I want to control the leaves taken by the employees. So how we can do that? Suppose if we want to control the leave, how we can control that? So for that matter, we have to have some standards. For example, we have to decide ourselves what are the things, how we can measure the leaves. For example, we have in a year a person can take maximum of 12 days leave, or in a month a person can take maximum of 1 or 2 days leave. So without having such standards, we cannot control the process. So we have to analyze first what parameter have to be measured or controlled, one thing. And if we decide this particular factor has to be controlled, then we have to understand how we are going to measure that particular factor, and what are the standards have to be kept. Because for example, if we consider the number of leaves, maybe from 0 to 12 days in a year may be the standard. Suppose if we want to control the performance of a teacher, how we can control? There are various parameters have to be considered, or there are various factors have to be considered. Let me take only one particular factor, pass percentage of the students. Suppose if I take this as a factor for controlling, then how we are going to establish the standards? So pass percentage, for that we have to maintain some standards. Okay, we will accept 80% of the students or 90% of the students have passed in this particular subject. Okay, the teacher performance is good. Otherwise, it's not good. So what we are doing in controlling process, we have to generate the standards, or we have to fix the standards. First step, we have to understand what factors have to be controlled, and the next step, we have to establish the standards for that particular factor. And now after completing the standards, this is the first stage. So you are establishing the standards. After that, there is a big issue of measuring the standards. For example, many of the factors are not quantitative, in fact. For example, suppose if it is a leave of the employees, it is quantitative in a year or in a month, or in last month how many days leave he has taken, that can be counted. So it is quantitative. But when we come to qualitative, it is very difficult to measure it, right? So whatever whether it is the factor is whether it is quantitative or qualitative, we have to understand, or we have to devise the instrument to measure that. So, okay, number of leaves, okay, we will get the leave form. It is an instrument through which we can measure the standards, whether it is deviating the standard or it is within the standards. Suppose if it is qualitative, for example, you are running a hotel or food processing industries, you are going to measure the taste of a food. How can you measure it? Whether it is quantitative, how many grams the particular food is taste. Can you tell like that? No, it is qualitative. So, whatever the factor we are going to control, we have to understand how we are going to measure it. So, we have to devise some instruments to measure the factors what we have established for the standards, and then we have to measure the actual performance. And then, what's our next stage? Why we are going to measure the performance, or why we are going to devise the instrument to measure it, to measure the performance? Okay, now we have measured the performance. Now, what is the idea? Why we are doing it? Just to measure whether it comes within the standards or within our limits. For example, we have fixed in a month a person can take 2 days leave. If he exceeds that, or 3 days if he takes, that indicates that there should be a corrective action. Am I right? So that's the idea. So now after measuring the performance, we have to compare it, the actual performance with the established standards. If the performance is within the standards, we can appreciate and no need of controlling. Whereas if it is exceeding that, or if it goes beyond that established standards, then that's what we mean as deviation. Then we need to take corrective actions, right? So that is the next step. So we are going to take corrective actions. These are all the 4 steps that we are. Yes. These are the 4 steps we have to look into that. So corrective action, if necessary, we are going to take, and then finally we have to understand whether the system is worked well, whether the standards are good, whether we are measuring the actual performance with the right instrument, whether the standards we fixed is right, whether 12 days is enough for an employee or not in a year for leaves, something like that. We are looking back. So feedback is important in every stages. That's why feedback is given. So as a whole, this is the controlling process. Not only in management or wherever you go or wherever you take, controlling means definitely we have to fix some standards and we have to measure it. This process is applicable to everywhere. So with that note, I will conclude that. Thank you.